You're listening to episode 6 of the Inspired Entrepreneur's Guide podcast. Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Inspired Entrepreneur's Guide, the podcast that encourages you to stop dreaming and start doing. I'm your host, Darlene Victoria. This week, I have a brand new interview with my guest, Kristin Carpentar Ogden, who is the owner of Verde PR, a PR company that caters to the outdoors and outdoor living communities, as well as the creator of livinguber.com, a website that provides resources to the same industries she offers PR services to. And she's also the host of the podcast Intrepid Entrepreneur. Today, Kristin shares her insight about starting her own business, some obstacles she faced as a work-at-home mom, as well as offering up some PR strategies that you can utilize in your business right now. So without any further delay, here's my conversation with Kristin. Kristin, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here talking about my favorite subject in the world.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad to hear you say that because I have a lot of questions about your business and everything that surrounds that. So let's just jump right in. Start at the very beginning. Why did you decide to start your coaching and consulting business, Verde PR?
Well, actually, I founded Verde 13 years ago after a 9-year journalism career. And Verde is a brand communications company, and Living Uber is my coaching and consulting company. We do a lot of coaching and consulting at Verde, which is where I think you got that from. But essentially, that is a brand communications firm. So I'll start by just saying, when I was a journalist, I worked at Shape Magazine and a lot of different titles as a freelancer, but I had several full-time jobs. And I just loved traveling and writing, and it was during kind of a golden era of journalism where, work was plentiful, people had travel budgets. It was a great time. And I am married still, but at the time my husband was a professional big wall climber for the North Face.
Oh, wow.
And, so we met in the industry, in the outdoor industry, active outdoor lifestyle market, which is cycling, snow sports, and outdoor. And, he obviously was working for a big company, and I was a journalist, so that's how we met. And we got married, and then all of a sudden my son came along, and my husband was still doing expeditions. So he was going all over the world to go climb big walls for the North Face, and I was traveling all over the world to do journalism at the time, and one of us had the deal.
Right.
So I decided to take my love for all the people I worked with in these industries, for the editors I loved going on trips with, and I decided to open an agency at the time that just did public relations. And I had been spending years being catered to by PR companies in my space, and I saw that there were a lot of things that they weren't doing that I would have loved to have had done when I was a journalist. But they just weren't doing it, like making it entertaining and fun. So I started doing, showing products to editors at trade shows, but I would do it poolside at a 4-star hotel, and they'd be, getting pedicures while I'd be doing it. And just really fun ideas that I was like, wow, since I'm now I'm on this side and I have budget, I'm going to really treat these editors like just mind-blowing VIPs with super fun things for them to do and make their job just awesome, right? Because that's what I wanted. And I think as entrepreneurs, that's where a lot of the seed comes from, right? We see things that aren't being done, and we want to do them, and that's where we go. Right. And so I basically I founded Verde when I was pregnant with my son, and both he and the company are 13 years old today, which I love to say.
Oh, wow.
I also have a daughter. Yeah. And I have a daughter now, too, who's 9. And so they've grown up in the industries and with this company. And all through the course of the last 13 years, I have coached and consulted clients. That's just part of what I'm here to do. It's very natural for me. I love to lead strategy, and working one-on-one with the people within these large brands we represent now is my favorite thing to do. So I decided a couple years ago to launch a company and a content opportunity in the podcast that really focused on coaching and consulting entrepreneurs, because when I founded Verde, I didn't have any sort of community or avenue of support. Nobody did as entrepreneurs in these markets. But it's funny because those markets were literally built on the backs of entrepreneurs, like people making climbing gear in their garages or sleeping bags and then selling them out of the trunks of their car on their way to a climbing trip. And that's who our industries are. Same with bikes, same with snowsports, same with even travel, like a lot of our markets. But there really isn't any sort of a resource for that. So that's what I founded Living Uber to provide, and I'm trying to serve entrepreneurs with that, and then also through my podcast, which is The Intrepid Entrepreneur. And that's basically, I interview, I think, a wide swath of entrepreneurs in our markets. Some are very, very well known, like the founder of Prana, that clothing company, and others are kind of new to our community, but powerhouses like Rue Mapp, who is, you know, a Keen footwear ambassador, founder of Outdoor Afro. Like, it's a really cool, eclectic group of entrepreneurs intended to inspire people who are, again, sitting there like at the drawing board, like, I want to do this and I don't know how, and they can listen to inspiration. And that's what I think you're doing your podcast. It really can get us through the tough times. So right now I'm just doing newsletter podcasts, and then I'm rolling out some online trainings toward the end of the year. But I have to really take it, you know, step by step to make sure I'm not taking my eye off the ball of my first child, which is Verde. I mean, I guess it's really my third, because my non-human child. That juggling act, I totally hear you on that. So I took a lot of takeaways from that, and I have a few follow-up questions. The fact that your husband is or was a professional climber, did you end up, this is just totally off the business for a moment, did you end up taking up climbing, or that was just his thing? Oh, no, I was a climber before I met him.
Oh, you were? Okay.
Yeah, our first date was ice climbing outside of Telluride, Colorado.
Oh, that's just awesome. See, that's the kind of stuff that I love to hear. Great.
So he still climbs a lot more than I do. I love to go ride my bike now, but I do still climb, and I love to ice climb. My favorite kind of climbing I do now is, you know, like the Grand Teton and stuff like that, where it's a long, long hike in, some fun, easy climbing, and then a long hike out and a giant meal at the end of it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, well, my husband and I are runners, so when we do long distances, the giant meal at the end of it is an absolute must.
It is. I totally hear you.
Yeah. Well, the other thing I picked up is that your business is 13 years old, and one of the reasons kind of was so you can work at home and be a mom. And now you have 2 children. So I don't think I asked this for you, but I'm going to go ahead and include that. So a lot of times I'll ask entrepreneurs what a challenge or obstacle is that they had to overcome in their business. But what has been the most challenging from being a work-at-home mom, and what has been the most rewarding?
Oh, it's such a great question. I think that the most challenging is I just love the flexibility, and I provide this to all of my employees at Verde. I have over 30 employees now in 4 offices, and many of them have children. And if they have an issue with their kids, it's totally fine. They have every, you know, leniency and freedom to attend to that. And I have a culture here that I have built because it's something that I went through as a mom and a working mom, an entrepreneurial mom. I guess they call that a mompreneurial now. Have you heard that term?
Yeah, I have.
But having that flexibility is really important to allow somebody to really get the most out of their career. Like, you have to build a career around the right people. And if those people have needs in their life that are very important and define who they are, we have to be respectful of those. So I think the best part has been the flexibility. The toughest part, and this might just be top of mind for me, but as a working mom, I'm not wired to ask for help as much as I should. For example, like, my kids just got out of school, and they've been doing this for a long time. I don't know why it's always hard for me the first couple weeks of summer, where I work from home. They're now at home, and I put together like a patchwork of camps for them. And it's really difficult to like switch the routine to where I'm like working 3 hours, picking them up, dropping them off, working 3 hours. So that adjustment period that you have to have with everything around children has always been a challenge, because I like to be a routine planning person. And as you know, as a mom, it's very hard to have a plan because life happens.
Right.
So I think that's the most challenging part, is if I could just have like a steady routine that was reliable, I'd get a lot more done, but my life would definitely not be as rich or colorful.
Yeah, well, my husband and I are adopting, and it's going to be a baby, and so I have not experienced the whole work from home with baby, but I will, so I will be there pretty soon.
Wow, that's fantastic. Well, congratulations, and you're literally going to be like, wow, what did I do before this? I had so much time.
Right?
Yeah. But it's like the best thing you could ever do.
Yeah,
so.
I can't imagine it any other way at this point. So
right.
So I'm going to kind of go back. So you mentioned that you now like bike riding, you've done climbing, and that's how you met your husband, and all of that fun stuff. So the Intrepid Entrepreneur we kind of touched on, where it highlights entrepreneurs in the active outdoor lifestyle market.
Mm-hmm.
Taking your experience from being having an active lifestyle, and also from the conversations that you've had with the entrepreneurs in the market, what would be one trait, or should I really say, how has being active helped you apply certain things in your business, like planning? Like, say, when I'm set to run a marathon or a half marathon, I have not done a marathon yet. But when
I like how you say yes. It's on the horizon, right?
I have a plan and I follow it. So obviously that skill also lends a hand in business, because if I set a plan, like a marketing plan, then I know I need to follow it and I'll get the results. So same question for you. Is there something like that comes to mind?
For me, it's my whole life. I mean, my tribe is people who love being active outdoors. And when I was in college, I found my people by becoming a raft guide, and then that led me to learning how to climb, learning how to mountain bike, and I just knew that I was in the right spot. And it was not only I was surrounded by like-minded people, and that was important, and being in a natural landscape, very important. But what really was most important to me is the fact that when I'm out there doing my thing, whether it's cycling or trail running or whatever it is, I'm very impassioned. I am very close to the feeling of being completely inspired and full of passion. And to me, that is what drives branding and innovation for entrepreneurs, especially in our market. So it's actually something I can't live without, and I've built a whole life around it. We raise our kids in that world. I live in a community that lives and breathes it. So it just has become, it's inextricable from my life, and my businesses are part of my life.
I love that. So far, the best takeaway I've gotten, which is many, but I love how you said, I found my people. That is like, I think that's the trick of it all. And it's, for some people, they struggle trying to find out where they fit, and they don't realize to really look right deep down into what they're most passionate about. I think it's probably the key there.
I totally agree with you, and it can be scrapbooking, it could be coaching Little League, it can be whatever it is that makes you, that thing that makes you light up. If there's a way to take that energy and that passion and infuse it into other facets of your life, especially your entrepreneurial life, I think you have nowhere to go but up.
Absolutely. I 100% agree. There's someone that says, hey, I want to start my business, but I'm just scared. I don't know how to take that first step. I'm scared to leave my cushy job in corporate, but I'm tired of working for someone else. I don't know what to do for that, to take that first leap. What do I do?
Okay.
Yeah.
I definitely, and this goes back to what we were talking about before, like if I had a community, it would have made a huge difference. And because of the nature of social media and, work from anywhere, and the fact that we have such close connection and a global economy thanks to the internet and all of the platforms and tools that we have, what I would do is I'd hop online and I'd find a community. My podcast, I just interviewed the guy who started, well, he didn't start it, but he's the guy who has scaled and grown Startup Weekend. Have you ever heard of that?
I have, yes.
It's super cool. So we may want to tag that in this so your audience can see that it's a great resource. But essentially, there's like 1,400 different events all over the United States and the world. I would look into following content from something like that, or if it was a specific industry, say if it was somebody who was wanting to create the first XYZ snowboard boot binding, and, they're sitting there in their cubicle and they're like, oh my gosh, I've got the best idea, or it's an app in that market, like that, I would be a great resource, so you could go to my site and I could connect you with other people that are working in these markets that are entrepreneurial. So I think the first thing I would do is I would get out of my head by joining a community. I'd show up to a larger group of people, because as my husband calls it, Kristin land, like when I'm kind of stressed out about something or I don't have an answer, and I will make up the answer in my head, and oftentimes I make up more drama or obstacles than even exist. And so I think with today's tools online, I would just pop online, do a Google search, and try and join a community and get engaged with other people who are like me, because I felt like a total lunatic, like I must be out of my mind, nobody's like me. Had I known there was a community of freaks, and I say that lovingly, just like me, it would have made a huge difference in my confidence level, and I would have known how to take the next best step. It's a very critical time, the one you're describing, and there are resources out there to make it more palatable to go through.
Absolutely, and you saying that reminded me, years ago my first business was specifically virtual assistants, and that's what I did myself. I thought I had this great idea. I'm like, I'm going to be an administrative assistant that works from home. Wonder what that is, and it already was something that existed. But I didn't know that. So I came across an online forum and joined up, and like you, found people like me and asked questions and got the resources, and that helped. So I'm so glad you brought that up. So I have one more question relating to your business. We were talking before about your first business. So your first business is Verde PR, and you do consulting and coaching for public relations and more. This final question is about a tip that listeners can implement in their business right now. So do you have a PR strategy or tip that's somewhat easy to implement, or a piece of advice that someone's listening to this, they can take it and run with it?
I think the first thing I would say is so there's two things. I would define my values, and that personal value exercise should feed into your business values if you're an entrepreneur. So that's the first thing I do. And there's all kinds of tools online for that. You can even just, Google something around business values or personal values, and there'll probably be a million resources. But I would go there and start there first, because I think it really helps you understand your why and who you want to serve. And then the second thing I would do is, there's actually three things, but I'll just say two, unless you want me to say three. But the second thing I do is I would identify my ideal client or customer. And the reason that's important in brand communications today is because you have to get to know your customer. We call it an avatar, and if you have a male and a female, version of it, that's fine, but you really should only have like one of each, and that's it. You shouldn't have 8, right? And the reason being is you want to really know who you're writing to. You want to know what they're up at night thinking about that your product or service solves. You want to know, everything about them, so that you can write copy and write messaging and create videos that really, truly are just for that person. You're literally going to sit down and write a letter to them as you're writing your copy. You're not really, but that's how intimately you should know them.
Right.
So and from there, you should get a very strong sense of what's the ideal platform. If it's a scrapbooking person, maybe Facebook is the best place, or Pinterest, something really visual. If it's more of a business service, maybe it's LinkedIn. Like, that's where you're going to define the social platform that will most likely connect you with your ideal client and customer. So that's why I think it's like values first for personal and business.
I want people to learn more about you and definitely listen to your podcast. I know they might be saying, well, I'm not in the active market.
Outdoor.
Outdoor. But just from talking to you, I know that they're helpful, and at least some of the content that's not necessarily related to active outdoor is going to be helpful and inspiring to them. And even if their market isn't that, maybe they are a climber or snow sports.
They might just like nature or bird watching. I mean,
right.
It's just,
absolutely.
It's about, and I interview all kinds of interesting, fun, and funny people. Like, there's a lot of characters in this space. So there's be fun people watching for them,
So is there a direct link? I know we can get it from your website, but why don't you go ahead and tell me where people can connect to you and also where they can find your podcast?
Okay. My podcast is at livinguber.com. So it's living and then B as in boy, ER.com/podcast. And everything on all of my shows is there. And then you can connect with me through the site or on Twitter, which is at GoLivingUber. That's what it is.
Awesome. Well, that wraps up the questions I had for you today, Kristin. And I really want to thank you for coming on the show and chatting with me about your business, why you started it, and an overall nice chat today. So thank you very much.
Oh, you're so welcome. It was an honor to be on here with you, and I'm happy to help.
Thank you, Kristin, for being a guest on the show. Again, if you want to learn more about Kristin and locate her podcast, just head over to livinguber.com. Well, that does it for this week's episode. You can find the show notes with links to some of the items we talked about in this episode at dvpodcast.com. You can connect with me on Twitter. I'd love to hear from you at Darlene Victoria, and also on Facebook at facebook.com/Darlene Victoria Work. I'll be back in a couple of weeks with a brand new episode. Until then, remember, stop dreaming, start doing. Be inspired by the most important person in your life, you. Thanks for listening. This is Darlene Victoria, signing out.